So who's living in assassination culture? We talked earlier about assassination culture and how we got there. So who's living in assassination culture? Well, one of the chief groups of people living in assassination culture are the gender-confused and gender-defiant people. This is why we've seen so many events, violent events and unalivings by gender-defiant, gender-confused people with weapons, because they're part of a culture that has been taught for about a decade that silence is violence. They've been taught that people want to commit genocide against them. They've been taught that they're being unalived. They've been taught that there's camps being built to store them in. They've been taught that if you will not agree that a man is a woman and a woman is a man, you are literally unaliving them. Did you know that? They invented a phrase, dead naming. If you refuse as a parent to use a made-up name for your kid, a kid that's tied to a made-up gender, you in fact then are choosing to have a dead son rather than a living daughter by not going along with the gender change. The entire culture has death related to it. There's the thing that they put young kids through, that you unalive the old kid. When you make the change and you become out to announce that you are so-called trans, often you're told to take old family photos and some of the old kids' underwear. They'll say if you're a girl, take some of the girls' underwear and some of the old photos of the girl and bury them. And if you have the capacity to do that, in fact, go burn them and come back a new being, rebirth, remade, or you might say reborn. Yes, it is an upside down sacrament. It is a reverse sacrament. Now you come back made in your own image. So much of this is around death. And if people will not then honor your pretend gender, they are then unaliving you. They are literally committing genocide. This is what these people are taught. And it sounds absurd. But then again, when you suddenly decide that you are the opposite sex, there's that whole saying, people who believe absurdities are people who can commit atrocities. So who's living in assassination culture? Well, I would say that the group called Armed Queers of Salt Lake City that helped train and recruit and arm so-called queer people in Utah, they were living in assassination culture. They deleted their accounts on September 10th, their social media account. If you remember what happened on September 10th, there might be a reason they deleted that. A lot of these groups appeared to know in advance what was going to happen to Charlie Kirk, which would make sense because they live in assassination culture. Meanwhile, Democrats are accusing the GOP of escalating political violence in the wake of Kirk's assassination. See, this is a very, very common game of people who live in assassination culture. They want to make it seem like everyone else is doing it. This comes from Como News out of Seattle, one of the, I guess, midway Mockingbird media, not the worst, but not the best. A growing number of Democratic lawmakers and political commentators have suggested that Charlie Kirk and the Republican Party bear responsibility for the escalation of political violence in the country. Kirk, a political activist known for visiting college campuses to engage in open debates with students and community members, was assassinated on Wednesday at Utah Valley University. A close friend of President Trump, Kirk was a staunch leader in the Make America Great movement, advocating for conservative beliefs such as anti-abortion laws, stronger immigration enforcement, protecting Second Amendment rights, and the freedom of speech. For years, videos of Kirk debating left-leaning college students would go viral, giving birth to the popular phrase of owning the libs used within conservative circles. Did you know that Charlie Kirk invented that phrase? I didn't know that. I don't think Como News knows that. Kirk's death has garnered condolences from both his allies like Trump to those politically opposed to him like former President Barack Obama and former President Kamala Harris. They said very little. But on Thursday, a day after Kirk's assassination, Representative Seth Moulton appeared on CNN saying that all Americans need to turn down the rhetoric, which is inciting the violence. But he also pointed the finger at Republicans for being the main culprit. Let's be honest about where this violence is coming from. Of extremist violence attacks in America, extremist murders, 76% are from right-wing extremists, 4% from the left-wing extremists. I condemn the 4%, but we also need to be honest about a nation where this violence is coming from. He's quoting a study that determined that people who had gun control views were far right. That is, anti-gun control views. The loosest possible interpretation of far right views and the kindest possible interpretation of far left views. It's a hoax. And when you get into assassination culture, which side has people coming out and saying that President Trump is an existential threat? Existential means a threat to our very existence. One side is doing that. There's a roadmap people built to the assassination culture. This is part of that roadmap. Watch or listen to this.
Let me ask you tonight, Do you think Donald Trump is a fascist?
Yes, I do.
This is what kicking the out of fascism looks like.
Try to prevent the spread of the lawlessness and the fascist chaos that's been unleashed against us.
So when we say Donald Trump is a fascist, fascism, a huge component of fascism is uniting racism, bigotry, a form of racist nationalism.
We are now living in a fascist dictatorship.
We are worried about potential rise of fascism in this country. We're worried about our democracy falling to an authoritarian and potentially fascist form of government.
Not only to roll over to Donald Trump's will, but to roll over our democracy and allow him to take over this country as a fascist dictator.
When fascism isn't just coming, it's already here.
The former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, said, "No one has ever been more dangerous to this country than Donald Trump, and he is a fascist to his core."
So if Donald Trump is a fascist to his core, no one has ever been a bigger danger to this country, and he enjoys the office of the presidency, there's an argument to be made that he must be taken out. And people who live in assassination culture have been taught that it's their job to begin taking people out. People like cops. We've talked about that. We just discussed this in the first story. All of the cops against whom those actions were taken, all of the unalivings and the attacks against political activists on the right. I mentioned 2 cases of this where people were unalived in the street because of their political views. That assassination culture was allowed to continue to the open, violent attack against cops in the streets by trying to lock them in buildings and set the buildings ablaze. That happened twice in Seattle. Hitting cops in the back of the head with an aluminum baseball bat happened twice in Seattle. Well, that didn't happen twice, but the Molotov cocktails happened prior to that. That young man was the son of a Democrat office holder and Democrat politician. These people live in assassination culture. It's not just the media. It's not just Antifa. It's the new president of the Oxford Union. He's referring here to some cancers that need to be dealt with. Watch or listen to this.
To effectively create change in the world we desire. And Side Prop will argue that at times there is simply nothing else that can be required other than violent retaliation. And this is a view I wholeheartedly agree with. The view that some institutions are too broken, too aggressive, too oppressive to be reformed. Like cancers of our society, they must and they should be taken down by any means necessary.
He's talking about systems that should be taken down by any means necessary. Who's he referring to? Let's watch it again and let's give it some context. Is the political right a cancer that must be dealt with in any means necessary? Again, the president of the Oxford Union.
To effectively create change in the world we desire. And Side Prop will argue that at times there is simply nothing else that can be required other than violent retaliation. And this is a view I wholeheartedly agree with. The view that some institutions are too broken, too aggressive, too oppressive to be reformed. Like cancers of our society, they must and they should be taken down by any means necessary.
He's doubled down on this recently, coming out to say that he didn't say anything more incendiary than Charlie Kirk said. Did Charlie Kirk encourage violence to take back our country? Not once. Not once. Oh, I've read the thread by the Media Matters lady, and I'll probably go through this later this week, where she's pulled out some very, very cherry-picked stuff from Charlie Kirk. She contends that Charlie Kirk at one point wanted to see Joe Biden unalived. What Charlie Kirk said was that if it's proven that Joe Biden had overthrown an election, if it was proven that he, in fact, committed treason, that he committed treason to get $50 million for his family, that he committed treason in order to overthrow the country and got paid in the process, he should be put on trial, and if found guilty, then he should face the results of treason, and that would be the death penalty. That is far different from saying someone should take him out. It involves a process. But Media Matters is not an organization committed to the truth. These people live in assassination culture. There is a teacher in Canada, Toronto, who has allegedly showed the video of Charlie Kirk being unalived to her 10 and 11-year-old students multiple times. This is from the New York Post. A public school teacher has been suspended after allegedly showing a video of Charlie Kirk's assassination to students as young as 10 in his class, authorities in Canada said. The teacher also suggested that Kirk deserved to be unalived and gave the young students a speech about anti-fascism and so-called transgender issues, according to reports. Several students from his class went home and complained to their parents, traumatized at witnessing the on-camera unaliving, which they were forced to witness numerous times over. The source told the Toronto Sun after the shocking incident at a school on Thursday. If you are someone who believes that people should be unalived because of their views, you are living in assassination culture. And know this, assassination culture goes two ways. If you are someone out saying you should be taken out for speaking offensive words, you are saying you have permission, you're giving us permission to take you out for your expensive words. That creates a assassination culture on all sides. These people are living in it and promoting it. What do you think would happen if, let's say, during the time after George Floyd, if someone went and took a megaphone and started to chant how happy they were that George Floyd had taken himself out with fentanyl? Let's say something they chanted like, he died, George Floyd overdosed to the end, something like that. What do you think would happen?
We got Charlie in the neck. We got Charlie in the neck. Who's up next? We got Charlie in the neck, in the neck. We got Charlie in the neck. We got Charlie in the neck. Who's up next? We got Charlie in the neck.
So obviously that's just a very angry and very sick kid, probably completely within game culture. We got Charlie in the neck. A lot of people are sick and they don't know where to turn to. There has been a real problem in our society in America with immune system problems, sometimes entire immune systems wigging out. This can be because of inflammation. It can come from some of the so-called long COVID symptoms, which are really probably long injection symptoms. A lot of it has to do with way too much fast food. But people can end up with immune systems that are whacked out. And this can manifest in things like rashes that never go away. It can manifest in things like soreness and fatigue that never goes away, the inability to digest certain foods. I learned on our free teleconference or live webinar with Renew that they've had incredible success at Renew Healthcare in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, at resetting people's entire immune systems. I was unaware that they could do this. Now, it makes sense because stem cells destroy inflammation. They rebuild tissue. They can help solve neurological issues, them stemming from traumatic brain injuries or ALS. But they've had this incredible success at resetting immune systems. So if you're one of those people who's got these immunological problems, please get in touch with my friends at Renew. Utterly world-class, completely different to what goes on in the United States. They're not allowed to do what they do in the United States, or they do it. They're not stupid people. They don't want to just be in Mexico. They'd love to be located here, but they can't because they use donor stem cells. They will only use donor stem cells because when they go and grab the umbilical cords and the placentas, and they only use the umbilical cords, they grab the placentas for research reasons, they take them down to the lab, which is a 5-minute walk. Then they begin processing them there. That allows them to reject most of the stem cells they get access to. They only accept the stem cells from 2 or 3 women per year. They're able to be that selective because they then culture the stem cells. That is, they make more of them. So you're always getting the very best stem cells. They're not allowed to do that in America. And they pay for the birth process of the women, and they go through pregnancy, monitor the health of the child and the women all the way through this. And even if they reject the stem cells, they still pay the women. They're good that way. So if you've got this immune system issue, please pause and don't believe what American medicine is telling you. It doesn't need to be drugs, or it might not need to be. Go to Renew, RENUE.healthcare. Please tell them you're part of the Todd Herman Show family. That's Renew, RENUE.healthcare. We talked about that confused, probably game-addicted kid. Here is the money and power-addicted MSNBC. MSNBC, of course, lives in assassination culture. They have done everything they can to come out and say, well, he should have expected it. Now, they got rid of Matthew Dowd, who said that on their air, that after all, Charlie Kirk said some very controversial things. Therefore, he should have been expected to take out. And he said, you can't go around saying things like that and not expect to not get backlash like this. Now, MSNBC is deliberately misleading their viewers and victims about the motives of the Charlie Kirk assassination.
One of the most striking details that we learned from this press conference were, again, about those bullet casings and the inscriptions, "Hey, fascist," the words "Bella Ciao," the words, "If you read this, you are gay." What do you see as the significance or what the message is that he's trying to communicate here?
Really, I would need to actually see these words in the way that they are on the bullet casings and the
I'd need to see the font he scrawled them with.
gun to make a proper interpretation. But just knowing what those words are, I'm kind of overwhelmed with how immature it all sounds, and that there is no
Casey Jordan is a criminologist, and she is overwhelmed.
really chronic theme. I think Brandy really nailed it. You have to make of it what you want, because, you know, it's like these bulges. If you're reading this, you're gay.
You are not a criminologist who's ever been around gaming culture, not a single time, or Discord culture or furry culture. The bulge in furry culture means that you've discovered that the person in the fursuit next to you is a man because that man is showing his bulge. That's what that means. The OWO, this is an emoticon for surprise. Oh, what's that? Hey, fascist, catch. That comes straight out of the Antifa playbook. The song, mentioned over and over again, Chill About, is a very popular song with Antifa and Transtifa. You're not a criminologist. You're an opinionist who has no opinion that's worth opinioning on. And yet we just did that. ABC News, meanwhile, has said that President Trump has called to end political violence following the assassination of Charlie Kirk, but he did not recognize violence against leftists. Yes, he did. He sent condolences to the leftist politicians unalived in Minnesota. These people are living in assassination culture.